This is the Ewaso Ng'iro River in Kenya. We are on the south side of the equator. The July weather is cool and the dry season will be starting soon. Regardless of the season, Maasai villagers come to the Ewaso every day. Why? Because this river is central to their lives. The Maasai tribe is one of the most recognized tribes in Africa. They are known for their elaborate upper body jewelry, which is mostly made out of beads. The herds in this area mostly graze rather than live on farms. This is because the herders believe that there is not enough water for agriculture. This is a map of central Kenya in a district called Laikipia. This location where we are filming is a few miles away from the Impala Research Center. The origin of the Ewaso Ng'iro River is Mount Kenya and its glaciers. A significant amount of agriculture happens upstream. The farms near this abstraction point are very green and lush. Because the water is shared unfairly between upstream and downstream, there is much less vegetation downstream. Those downstream are only left with the option of herding. In the Ma language, the name Ewaso Ng'iro means muddy water. The longer you stay near the Ewaso, the more you realize that for people here the river has multiple purposes. It is their laundry, their shower, their drinking tap, and their lavatory, for one and for all. Here, the river of muddy water is life.
In Africa, we have a lot of water resources, and in the same time also we have little water, and also we have water which is polluted.
Kenya experiences floods and droughts. In the northern part of the country, we experience drought every year.
Kenya does indeed experience floods. The average annual rainfall in Kenya is over 700 millimeters. This is well above the average of many other countries. But the quality of life in Kenya does not reflect this abundance.
2 years ago, there was a significant prolonged drought in the Impala region where you see grass now and you see trees. It was just bare soil. Cattle were dying, people were starving in the neighboring communities, and you could see the rib cages of animals. It was a devastating sight.
What Kenya suffers from is poor management of water resources. This, plus huge seasonal variability, causes Kenya's water insecurity. Flood seasons are followed by drought seasons. Floods wash away riverbanks and farms on them. Unless they build more storage ponds, more dams, and more infrastructure for rainwater harvesting, the chance for clean water is lost.
Well, if you talk about drought, there's many tenets of drought: meteorological, agriculture, and so forth and so on. Now, in terms of the hydrological drought tool and water, I think it's important that the farmers are shown, the variations in the moisture content, so that at least some water can be stored early enough.
Last year, the Horn Africa experienced a huge drought, which had consequences on population.
There has been a loose connection between, what is done as research and what is required by the farmers. And this is something for the last 5 years or so has been addressed a lot by the policymakers.
As a researcher in the Water Resources Group at Princeton University, I paid my first visit to the Impala Research Center this summer. For me, the area was a place of abject poverty and majestic beauty. It was quite striking how this contrast just jumped out at me.
This 50,000 acres of land is a virtual sandbox for researchers. They can construct experiments on parts of the land they can monitor for years and years. It's a place they can come and they know they'll always be able to come here and do research. It's a place where students today can pick up on the work of students 5 years earlier, and students in the future can pick up on the work of today's students. There aren't many places in Kenya that offer this level of continuity. We've been here 25 years. We hope to be here many, many more years.
I decided to shoot a video about the importance of water and the lack of basic hydrological information for flood and drought forecasting. And I found the nicest people who volunteered to help me. There are many things that can be done about the water situation in Kenya.
There's lack of data, especially observed data in most African countries.
One of the challenges we experience as a ministry is a lack of data or scattered data held by various people.
Once we succeed to install flow monitoring gauges, we can measure the variability of surface water. This data is very valuable for planning, agriculture, policy, and insurance for floods and droughts. The data collected from monitoring stations can also be used to validate computer tools. One such tool is the African Drought Monitor program of Princeton University.
Climate change and water is the defining problem that we see in Africa, as well as other parts of the world. And so we're hoping that these tools will enable the countries to be able to make better monitoring and prediction capabilities.
we want to take the user's needs, the farmer's needs into consideration, because normally they trust their forecasts on short-term basis. And sometimes they have got this idea that research is always for people up there and not getting filled out of the ground. So by bringing the two forms of knowledge together, we try to, to make them enjoy our work in as much as we appreciate their work on the ground.
Today at the Ewaso River, not everyone is working quite as hard. This 3-year-old female camel will be sold at the market today. The market is on the other side of the As water becomes less available, women are forced to carry water from the river to the house. I've been invited by a Maasai family to have some tea in their house. The average Maasai person uses a total of only 3.5 liters of water per day. According to the United Nations, a human being needs 50 liters of water per day in order to prepare meals and have enough for personal hygiene. The average North American uses between 200 and 250 liters of water per day. In a developed country, we take water as a magical thing. We turn on the tap and expect to see clean water. We would be angry otherwise. In places like this, you realize the concept is totally different. If you want water, great, go find it. I thought to myself, how differently would this woman be spending her time if she had the luxury of water piped to her house? Can you ask her to tell me how many children she has and when she got married and how old she is now?
6 na aja anwa bagay. She don't remember when she was married.
Now, the provision of water in Kenya is not a privilege, rather it's a right, it's an obligation that the government of Kenya must provide water to every citizen in this country. It's contained in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 under the Bill of Rights that every citizen in this country must have water available within a reasonable distance and at an affordable cost. Therefore, mapping of water resources in this region I've mentioned of Marsabit will enable us to call in investors and even private sector to invest in water resources so that our people in this region can access water at reasonable distance and at affordable cost.
As the food in pastures on this side of the river starts to diminish, the herds are forced to cross the river to find green pastures.
The people across the river had nothing. When the river dried up, they had to move to places where their cattle could feed or die. It was a very difficult time.
If only they knew the grass is greener on the other side. The fieldwork for installing gauges turned out to be a very challenging task. Almost want something exactly like this, but with the holes on the side. Or something like this, is smaller, this diameter, with the holes on the side. Yeah. At the second monitoring site, the wooden mold for the concrete was stolen overnight, and the concrete collapsed. We had to start the work afresh. But we are not the only ones that face so much of a challenge to collect data.
Somalia has been in civil war for the past 20. During that civil war, many meteorological stations which are useful to gather or collect data has been completely destroyed. But the nature it is as it is. The drought still is there, but we don't have a means or ways to gather information.
We have opted to do the automatic weather stations, which is very expensive, and we are also faced with the problem of standardization of these equipments. We've already lost a couple of them.
We have been working with the University of Princeton to provide tools which could help African countries to monitor and also to, if possible, to forecast drought, because that will help them to anticipate and to take necessary actions to address the issue of drought.
Water security is a critical issue in Africa, and we want to give tools to countries in Africa to be able to monitor drought and to be able to see what will be the impacts as they look at their crop and their crop predictions over the growing season. In January we went and had a similar installation in Niamey in Niger for West Africa, and now we're in East Africa. We hope that in the future that we'll be down in South Africa.
This is what it looks like at the moment, and you can see here the website drought.icpac.net, so it's actually up and running. And we have our multilingual part of it here, so different languages. Click on one of these and it updates the user interface to the language of the choice there. And we have some other indices here as well, so we actually have soil moisture from satellites and many other types of products and indices can be added to this fairly easily.
Countries will go back and continue using the tool to test it. And really what you are looking for is their feedback, because we need to know what is the added value of the tool for them in order to see what we have to change, what we have to adapt, so that really the tool can be improved for the benefit of the population.
Now, this is a very simple way of packaging our information. That we expect, for example, if it is rainfall, should be above or below normal, so to speak. Now, what I would expect is that if in any case this tool has to be used, then it can be packaged in that particular way. What are the probabilities that at least the tool can predict drought? The perception has been for a very long time that tools are being imposed. And I repeat, this is a perception. A tool from somewhere is brought down and you're supposed to apply it. No, this should not be the case. The case should be the people should own the tool. After owning the tool, then they begin to practice and to use it accordingly on the ground.
Yes, but it's reset here from the beginning of the year, January. From January.
This particular tool, if it can be used ideally for forecasting in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to come, then already this is the kind of information that we need. And it would be nice that during the Climate Outlook Fora for the whole of the Greater Horn of Africa, this tool is part of it.
As I said initially, we have also the issue of floods. So if the tool also can be adapted to address the issue of flood, that will be wonderful. So that we can have within the same tool can help to address the two issues: the too much water, the floods, and the too little water, the drought.
One of the stations started working today. One more flow site has been added to the network of data sources. It is an important moment because it represents the culmination of the work of many people.
I enjoy a nice time spending with you guys. It's very short.
The dry season will be coming soon, but still the Maasai people will come back to the river of muddy water every day.
We may not say, up to now we may not know, for example, the African drought what is the best tool to use. But at least if in any case we can be able to forecast with some level of probabilities. And those probabilities, of course, they take into consideration the aspect of uncertainties in forecast. So this can be a starting point towards giving future information about the aspect to do with water resources or drought studies or floods and so forth and so on. So yes, there are some errors, but at least it's better to have some error margin than to have nothing at all. Good job, guys. Good job. Asante.
The camel is still there.